From ABC News, around the world and into your home, the stories that touch your life with Hugh Downs and Barbara Walters. This is 2020 Friday. Tonight, the White House fights back against the president's accusers. Lawyers for Paula Jones spoke out last week, and Kathleen Willey went public. Today, the president's lawyers respond. The latest developments in this tangled web. Crisis in the White House. And a story we never thought we'd be telling in America again. Roy Smith's unending ordeal. An innocent black man, preyed on by neighbors like this man, driven out of town by a campaign of terror.
I knew that these people eventually was going to kill me.
He was assaulted, run down, even strung up in his own home.
You should have seen the cuts in his ankles from the wire that was wound around his legs.
Again and again, he asked for protection, but police looked the other way.
I thought, my God, this is happening in America. This is happening in Colorado.
Connie Chung with one man's dramatic struggle against hate and violence. A story you'll never forget. Roy Smith's America. Plus, breaking medical news. And 2020 was there. A revolution in treating sexual impotence happening any day. We'll take you behind the scenes of this exciting discovery with some of the first men to try it.
If you really love each other and have a really good sex life, then these things become incredibly important.
Nothing short of a miracle for millions of loving men who may no longer need awkward shots or devices. Dr. Timothy Johnson with a medical breakthrough that is bringing loving couples together again. A prescription for love. Those stories tonight, Friday, March 20th, 1998, after this brief message.
A bra like never before. The 18-hour Comfort Flex. With straps that flex and hold so comfortably, it feels incredible all day long. Is that a Playtex under there?
Butler, get these tax documents to our clients fast, but watch our costs.
FedEx can deliver it in 2 days for up to $11. UPS can deliver it in 2 days for up to $11.
Priority Mail can deliver it in 2 to 3 days for $3.
Smart move, Butler.
So, 11, 11, 3, what's your priority? Priority Mail from the U.S. Postal Service.
One of these women uses Suave's new Healthy Shine with Pro Vitamins. The other uses Pantene Pro V. Both have beautiful hair that looks healthy, nourished, and full of shine. So, who uses Suave Healthy Shine? And who spends up to twice as much on Pantene? If you can't tell, why should we? Suave. Don't you look smart?
Very daring. Very unconventional. Ecco domani Pinot Grigio. Very Italian.
A dramatic day in Washington. President Clinton's lawyers came out swinging against two women who have accused him of sexual misconduct. Last week, Paula Jones's attorneys spoke out after filing 700 pages of documents they said supported her claims. And then Kathleen Willey went on national television with her graphic accusations. Today, the president's side fired back. John Donvan has the latest developments in the crisis in the White House.
For once, Bill Clinton's Brooklyn-born tough guy lawyer pulled a punch. Today was the day Bob Bennett was going to introduce documents in court focusing on Paula Jones's sex life. At least that's what the Washington Post reported this morning. The implication was these details would not be flattering to Jones. Only Bennett didn't do it. Instead, in 200 pages that his deputies filed today in Little Rock, Arkansas, Bennett never mentioned Jones's sex life. But in responding to the 700 pages of documents that Jones's lawyers put in last week, Bennett argued one last time that her case deserves to be thrown out of court.
The 700-page filing by her attorneys last week was little more than a web of deceit and distortions.
And about Jones's claim to be suffering from a form of sexual depression because of what she says the president did.
No interference with marriage, no this, no medical bills, never even an aspirin.
And his views on what is driving this case.
And the truth is that lawsuit is politically motivated. A politically motivated attack on President Clinton.
No one disputes that there is a lot of politics in this case, but the question today is whether Bennett decided not to go after Paula Jones' sex life because of politics, because doing so could undermine the president's support among women.
What about it? Reporters asked Mr. Clinton's spokesman today, did Bennett get orders from the president to back off on Jones's personal life?
The president doesn't instruct Mr. Bennett on tactical matters related to the litigation. The president has enormous confidence in Mr. Bennett's ability, and the president, I think, probably accepted the recommendations and judgments made by Mr. Bennett about how to pursue this phase of the litigation.
Meanwhile, Kathleen Willey did feature in Bennett's filing today. Bennett released testimony from his cross-examination of Willey in a recent deposition. Bennett, has he, the president, ever threatened you that if you didn't engage in sexual activity with him, that somehow you would be penalized? Willey, no. Have you ever had sexual relations with Mr. Clinton, sexual intercourse with him? No. Has he ever asked you to have it? No.
What Bennett's trying to do here is to undermine the claim that Bill Clinton sexually harassed Kathleen Willey, or anyone else for that matter, in the sense of routinely pressuring her for sex. By the way, as we said, Bob Bennett may have pulled his punch today on Paula Jones's sex life, but he did not rule out using her personal history against her in the future. Hugh?
The judge could rule any time on President Clinton's motion to have the Paula Jones lawsuit dismissed. If it goes forward, the trial will begin in Little Rock, Arkansas on May 27th. Well, next, he bears the scars of a harrowing ordeal. His body has healed, but his mind will never forget, and neither will you. Connie Chung with an epic struggle between one innocent black man and a white town. Prepare yourself for Roy Smith's America when we come back.
Doesn't your body deserve to be as beautiful as your face?
New Pond's Ultra Silk Body Lotion takes dramatic advances in face care, like alpha hydroxys, below the neck. For younger-looking, more beautiful skin all over. New Pond's Ultra Silk.
You eat right.
Uh-huh.
You exercise.
Every day.
With your high cholesterol, aren't you afraid of a first heart attack?
Why do you think I eat right and exercise?
Still, that might not be enough to prevent a first heart attack.
That won't happen to me. Won't happen to me.
But it can, because if you have high cholesterol, you could be at risk of a first heart attack.
So what else can I do?
Talk to your doctor about Provocol now. Lots of medications can lower cholesterol, but with Provocol, there's more. Provocol lowers cholesterol and is the only drug of its kind proven to help prevent a first heart attack.
So I can really help control my risk?
Yes, in fact, Provocol can reduce the risk up to 1/3. Provocol, when used together with diet and exercise, has been prescribed for millions. It's not for people with liver problems or women who are pregnant or nursing or may become pregnant. Your doctor may do blood tests to check your liver function, because serious side effects can result. Tell your doctor about any muscle pain or weakness you experience while on Provocol. For information, ask your doctor or call us. Provocol, proven to reduce the risk of a first heart attack up to 1/3.
Enterprise? Hi, I'm at the repair shop. I need to rent a car.
Enterprise will arrange to pick you up,
This is great.
drive you to our place, and get you on your way. Pick Enterprise. We'll pick you up.
Paging Bob Morello. Friends and colleagues, oh Bob. Tired of hearing Bob Morello constantly paged over this system? Then you'll love how our new MCI one-number technology locates even the elusive Mr. Morello. Behold, as I dial Bob's 800 number, witness the call bounce from Bob's office to his home and now to his cell phone.
Hello?
I give you MCI's one-number technology.
Who is this?
You're invited to a sneak preview.
I'm getting married this week.
She's whose daughter? Of the wedding of the year. Oh my God.
Oscar!
The reunion of the decade. And the friendship of a lifetime.
Why, when you get around me, you behave like a kid still? Hey, wait!
The Odd Couple 2.
Didn't you put the brakes on?
Boy, I didn't know you were going to punch it.
Rated PG-13. Sneak preview Saturday, April 4th.
Monday, Will Smith, Kim Basinger, and Burt Reynolds share their intimate secrets with Barbara Walters.
If there was one love of your life, which woman was it?
An all-new Barbara Walters special. Then, it's Hollywood's biggest event. Billy Crystal hosts the 70th Annual Academy Awards live at 8, 7 Central ABC Monday.
Tuesday.
I have cancer in my prostate, and that guy's gonna have to cut on me.
These are tough times for Andy.
My friend, my good friend.
But at the 15th precinct,
I've got a gun in this pocket.
If you move your hand, you're gonna get hurt.
Things just got worse.
Unhook the handcuffs.
New Blue, Tuesday. Viewer discretion advised.
Few people have heard of Roy Smith, but once you hear his story, you will never forget him. Roy Smith wanted nothing more than a simple, peaceful life, and he thought he had found that in the majestic mountains of Colorado. But the beauty surrounding him was no match for the ugliness he encountered there. His is one of the most compelling civil rights cases in years, and we bring it to you exclusively tonight. Connie Chung has a story that will echo in America's conscience. Welcome to Roy Smith's America.
There isn't anybody in the United States that ought to be treated in the fashion that Roy was treated.
He was just a decent, independent fellow who loved his home up there, but was the victim of a campaign of terror.
He was our only black, and so people called him Nigger Roy. Right or wrong, that's what happened.
Roy Smith doesn't live here anymore. His fears won't let him. On this day, he returned to Gilpin County, Colorado, only after we guaranteed his safety. For 20 years, these mountains were his home. Now, his cabin sits in ruins.
No, this happened when people tore it up. It was really trashed out.
For years, Roy Smith repeatedly claimed he was the victim of brutal, racially motivated crimes. Violent assaults that local authorities did little or nothing to investigate. Left unprotected, Smith fled for his life.
I knew that these people eventually was going to kill me. And they was bad men protecting evil men.
There were neighbors he claims tormented him.
Well, Mr. Smith claims I tried to murder him, tried to run him over. That's murder to me.
There were officers who failed to protect him. The record shows that you didn't believe Roy Smith.
That's correct.
There was racism and humiliation.
Roy Smith never asked you to call him Nigger Roy, did he?
But there were lawyers who helped Smith fight back.
I thought, my God, this is happening in America. This is still happening in America. This is happening in Colorado.
I remember back in 59.
Growing up in Mississippi, Roy Smith vividly remembers the ugly face of American racism. He witnessed cross burnings, lynchings, and is still haunted by the memory of one atrocity.
The little black 9 or 10-year-old child was stretched out. And campfire was built in his stomach.
A campfire was built on his stomach.
Right.
I'm one of the blacks that got away.
Before he was 8, barely able to read or write, Smith fled the South and became a drifter, living what he calls the hobo life. He traveled the rails and in the mid-70s came to Colorado, settling into the hills outside Central City, an old gold mining town an hour west of Denver. It was a harsh life. There were nights he slept under trees, poor and hungry.
I eat whatever I could find off the land.
Like other mountain men, Smith became a cowboy and a gold miner, taking odd jobs, working in mines, and scratching a living, panning for tiny nuggets of gold.
Roy Smith, to me, was a real gentle person.
Dan Wall and Jim Hutchinson were Roy Smith's neighbors and his friends.
I think a lot of people might have looked down their nose and wondered, what the hell is he doing up here?
3,300 whites in the county and only a handful of blacks didn't stop Smith from eventually moving into this remote cabin. It had no electricity, no telephone, no running water. And without a car, he traveled miles on foot. But to Smith, it was home. What was it about the mountains and where you lived that you loved so much?
All I know is something that seemed like freedom up there.
For a brief moment, in the midst of such beauty, Roy Smith believed the terror of Mississippi was behind him. But he was wrong.
There was a few people that didn't like Roy Smith. He had more bruises and lumps on him than somebody took baseball bats or boards or something to him.
The crimes were relentless. On roads or near gold mines, Strangers in trucks jumped out and beat him with boards or baseball bats and called him nigger. Later, his home was vandalized, dynamite thrown at him, and acid poured on his clothes.
I had a lot of bad things happen. I don't know how to measure them. I never stopped to think of which is the baddest.
Wounded and often bleeding, Smith would walk miles into town to this clinic where Dr. Eleanor Christensen treated him for at least 20 injuries.
He told me the circumstances under which the injuries occurred, and he also told me he had stopped at the sheriff's office on his way to the clinic each time to report these incidents.
Smith filed complaint after complaint, frequently identifying potential suspects and their vehicles, leads he assumed would be followed up. Under Sheriff Bain, Roy Smith says that he brought you a baseball bat that someone hit him with. Did you ever examine that baseball bat for blood or fingerprints?
No.
It was the beginning of a pattern. Many of Smith's charges were never written up. Others were left unsolved or closed due to lack of evidence.
The sheriff's department never contacted me, and the fact they didn't believe him, I find incredible.
Tell me about this. These are the mirrors that you put up?
These are just...
Roy Smith says he lived in a constant state of fear, so frightened that he set up his own security system.
And if you could look in this mirror here, and it'll let you know if somebody's coming up this road here.
This is the way you protected yourself.
This is the way I protected myself.
But in the darkness, he felt most vulnerable. Many nights he hid in this water tank at the bottom of the hill.
I was there, but I wasn't sleeping. I was too afraid to sleep.
But Smith says the days were no better. Around town, he became a caricature, people degrading him with racial slurs. Then one name became permanent. How did you feel about being called Nigger Roy?
I felt dirty and low and uncleanable.
People come up, "Hi, Nigger Roy, how you doing?" That's how primitive we're talking.
John Harlan is a Denver attorney who would eventually represent Smith.
He knew he had to take that kind of stuff there, because that was the role they'd given him. Right? That was the status he was placed in.
In the spring of 1992, Smith was involved in a wage dispute over some handiwork he had done for his neighbor, Robert Berube, who lived only a few yards down the road. Suddenly, over the next several weeks, Smith says he was attacked not once, but 5 separate times by Berube's dogs.
Is this man preaching gospel? I mean, so Mr. Smith says. Darn it all, so what? Bob Berube says he's full of baloney.
Have your dogs ever bitten anyone?
To my knowledge, never.
Never?
Never. I mean, did they try to bite you when you came in?
No.
No.
We didn't have trouble that day.
Here, Chester, you didn't get one.
But others besides Roy Smith feared Berube's dogs.
Every time I went up there, or my wife went up, I kept a loaded .357 Magnum laying in the front seat just for those dogs.
They eat me up enough. I got the proof. My body carries it, and the record shows it.
In fact, these photos of Smith's legs show some of his bite marks. The clinic's records are full of entries of multiple puncture wounds to his ankles, thighs, and even his stomach. Berube did receive a few minor tickets, a mere slap on the hand, and he did plead guilty.
All we wanted to do is get it over with.
And you paid medical bills as well.
Yeah, yes, we did.
You told Sheriff Hartman that on one occasion, Roy Smith deliberately opened your fence so that the dogs could come out and bite him.
I believe somebody lifted the fence, and the only person that I can think of that would do that would be Roy Smith.
You don't really believe that, do you?
You just want to let him loose again so we get another complaint against us.
Sheriff Hartman, do you really believe that Roy Smith would lift a fence and allow dogs to bite him?
Very bizarre things happen. Is it possible? Yes. Did he do it? I don't know.
Bruce Hartman took the white man's belief over the black man's word.
Case closed?
Case closed.
Several months later, on the night of August 3rd, 1992, Roy Smith was walking near this road. He had just set up a freshly painted yard sale sign when suddenly he heard a car approaching from behind him.
The lights was going up and down because it was hitting these bumps, and it was a rough road, so they just kept bouncing. And I knew the car was going pretty fast.
The car was headed straight for him. Smith ran behind his sign and some boxes as the car rammed into him. Then the car backed up, and with its engine revving, came at Smith again. He saw the license plate number, and he heard a voice.
The voice said to him, "You mother-f***ing nigger, you goddamn mother-f***ing niggers are all over the place." Screamed it at him.
Did he recognize that voice?
He thought it was Mr. Berube.
His neighbor.
His neighbor.
There was no question that whoever was trying to run over me and hurt me real bad.
Right here is where the sign was at.
The next morning, a deputy arrived at the scene after Smith called the sheriff's department.
And I told him I'm going to protect this evidence if I give my life to protect this evidence. Well, he looked off toward the mountains, and he never even looked at none of the signs and nothing.
They gave the case instead to the State Highway Patrol. Trooper Derek Kemper says he was surprised by what the sheriff's department told him before he went out to the scene.
They said that the majority of the people in that particular area referred to Roy as the town nigger.
Trooper Kemper is as straight as an arrow. He sets immediately to work figuring out what happens. He develops a case. He listens to Roy's story. He assembles and photographs the signs. He photographs Roy Smith's knee.
And it matched up to his story of how the sequence of events went, and it was very credible.
The trooper then ran the license plate Smith had remembered. Whose license plate did it turn out to be?
Was my neighbor Robert Berube's up there turned out to be.
So I went up to Mr. Berube's house. The vehicle was sitting there. I walked around the vehicle.
And he found paint on the bumper.
Of the very car?
On the very vehicle that he thought matched the paint on the signs, which still wasn't completely dry.
He found the evidence he wanted.
Which was?
Paint on the car and the damage from the signs to the car.
I also heard from dispatch that the owner of the vehicle was under suspension and didn't have a valid driver's license at the time.
In fact, Berube's license was revoked. Records show he had a drinking problem and admitted to blackouts. He was convicted twice for drunk driving, had spent time in jail, and if caught again, could have spent up to a year in prison. With the suspect and evidence, the trooper went back to Central City ready to obtain a warrant. But that never happened. The case was taken away from him and given back to the local sheriff.
They took the case away from Trooper Kemper. He said, well, I've got all the photographs. He turned it all over to him. They didn't blow up the photographs. They didn't look at the car. They never obtained a warrant. They didn't even go up to talk to Berube for 26 days.
All I can recall that sheriff asking me was, did you try to run Roy Smith over last night? And I said, absolutely not. And I believe that was pretty much the end of the conversation. I don't think he went into anymore.
He didn't ask you anything else?
No.
Didn't ask you about the red paint on your bumper?
He didn't even look at the bumper. I didn't tell him I ran over the woodpile. He didn't ask me that. I wasn't going to voluntarily tell this man, hey, guess what, Sheriff? I just ran over Roy Smith's woodpile on purpose, and I'm under suspension on my license. I wasn't going to do that.
Did you try to run Roy Smith over?
Absolutely not.
Unbelievably, the case was officially closed for lack of evidence.
They didn't protect me and didn't try. So many things happen, you know, one on top of the other. Makes you feel like, what are you doing? I mean, leave.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking, why didn't you just leave?
I had no way to leave. I had nothing to leave with. I just kept believing and hoping that someday it would let up and it wouldn't happen no more, but it just kept happening.
And Roy Smith had no idea that the worst was yet to come.
When we come back, how far would his enemies go to drive Roy Smith out of town? The answer is hard to believe. So is the response of the local police. Connie Chung with the dramatic developments after this.
When you ship with Priority Mail, it's a great way to save money. But what about other parts of the world? There's Global Priority Mail. And here's the best part. Give us a few days more, and you can save up to 70% over FedEx or UPS. So, what's your global priority? Try Global Priority Mail from the U.S. Postal Service.
The best way to stop suffering from allergies is never to start. This is Nasal Crown. You heard right. Nasal Crown. It's allergy prevention. Nasal Crown doesn't just relieve allergies. It flat out prevents them, preventing the natural defenses in your nose from going haywire. so you can live like a person with no allergies. Nasal Cram's like nothing else. No drowsiness, no jitters, no rebound congestion. Nasal Cram, the best way to stop suffering is never to start.
Easter's right around the corner, so get your little bunny to Sears Portrait Studio's Easter sale. Come in now and get your choice of portraits for only $6 a sheet. At that price, you can get quite a few. Portraits, that is. Plus, you can choose from brand new Mickey, Minnie, or Pooh backgrounds from Disney. And take home a free color proof. Hurry into Sears Portrait Studio's Easter sale. At $6 a sheet, you'd better get hopping.
You shouldn't have. One size fits all.
Nice. This is so different. Really different. Thanks. This is a hat. More pigs. Ralph.
From everyone at Haynes Her Way, may you have many happy birthdays and many happy returns.
They really shouldn't have.
Millions of viewers have made Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place the biggest hit of the season. But just when you thought you had them figured out, Sharon wants to add her do-goody boyfriend to the mix.
You saved his life.
What a show-off. A new Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place right after Drew, ABC, Wednesday.
Monday on The View, we're talking about the 70th Annual Academy Awards. It's The View's countdown to Oscar, plus the fabulous Delta Burke. Monday.
He's been through a lot, but it isn't over yet. A black man preyed on by his white neighbors. The stunning conclusion of Roy Smith's America. Then, a medical breakthrough for millions of impotent men. They want to make love. Now it's easy when 2020 Friday continues. After this from our ABC stations.
Monday, only Barbara Walters could get 2 Academy Award nominees and Hollywood's fastest rising star to share the most intimate secrets. Will Smith.
You're attracted to me, I can tell.
Kim Basinger.
I am living proof that dreams do come true.
Burt Reynolds actually kisses and tells.
If there was one love of your life, which woman was it?
An all-new Barbara Walters special, Then. It's Hollywood's biggest event. Billy Crystal hosts the 70th Annual Academy Awards live Monday on ABC.
Tonight on KMBC 9 News.
Nobody had ever seen anything like this before.
Hundreds of dogs found living in squalid conditions on a rural farm. How authorities found them and what will happen to the dogs. And is it worth it to pay for more expensive dog food? We'll show you why you should check the label instead of the price tag at 10. Now here's Brian.
Well, Lori, it's not the dog days of summer, but we are talking about springtime weather and a warming trend. Things should be pretty dry for the weekend. The forecast and the 7-day trend coming up tonight at 10 on KMBC 9 News, where the news comes first.
Some things you just shouldn't wait to do. Play Powerball today. The jackpot is $28 million. But if you hesitate, you could miss your chance.
Since introducing the Infiniti QX4, people have been lining up to test drive it. And after they experience its automatic 4-wheel drive capability, its leather-appointed interior, and its 6-speaker Bose audio system, they're usually impressed enough to buy it. Now, thanks to a special lease rate, they'll also be impressed enough to lease it. The special QX4 lease. Now for a limited time at your Infiniti retailer.
Kelly Eckerman, only on KMBC 9 News.
From ABC News, 2020 continues. Once again, Hugh Downs.
Roy Smith had gone to the mountaintop to find peace. Instead, he found hatred and violence. A black man targeted by white neighbors, abused and assaulted again and again. Why didn't the law protect him? Would his ordeal ever end? Well, as Connie Chung picks up the story, the answer, unfortunately, is not yet.
In October 1992, a few months after someone tried to run him over, Roy Smith says he was alone in his cabin, taking a bath in a barrel. Suddenly, from behind him, the door burst open, and someone threw a musty jacket over his head.
Then they grabbed me, one on each side of my shoulder somehow, and the other one lifted up my legs, and they strung me up.
3 men tied wire around Smith's legs and then hanged him upside down naked with a rope they attached to a beam.
They said that if they had seen me with any white women, they would have They would have took care of my family jewels.
And they had pliers.
Mm-hmm.
They took pliers to his scrotum, pulling on his testicles and threatening to castrate him. Finally, they fled, leaving Smith strung up by his ankles from the rafters of his house.
It was awful painful.
When you were hanging there by your feet, did your mind race back to Mississippi?
Mm-hmm. Went back to the hangings that I'd seen in the South. I was thinking that it was the end. I've been through a lot of things, but the end has sure come up on me now.
In extreme pain, Smith thrashed his body enough to break the wire and get down. Barely able to walk, Smith waited 5 days before he went to his friend Jim Hutchinson for help.
I got so angry when he took off his boots and showed me his ankles, and you should have seen the cuts in his ankles from the wire that was wound around his legs. He was clutching his groin. I could see from his pants that he had a hell of a swollen area around his penis and his private parts, as he called them. And I said, well, Roy, you have to go back down to the clinic.
I don't know why I couldn't tell about the wire marks on my leg. I just couldn't break myself to tell her that.
You only asked her to treat your private parts.
I had to. There was no hope of surviving without her help in that way.
Roy rolls up his pants legs and he says, you need to look at something. And he shows me these wounds.
Even 2 years after the attack, John Harlan could see the dark curved marks above Smith's ankles. Later, a forensic pathologist confirmed that Smith's scars were consistent with a hanging.
You can never forget. And there's no place you can hide or run to make it better.
Because you see the scars on your body.
Right. And when you see them all the time, and you see them even more so when you take a bath, they're there. I had water in my eyes because of the sadness of another human being would do such thing to another human being without a cause, without any cause at all, just because there's the wrong complexion. It makes you wonder why. Why did it happen?
Smith claims he reported the hanging to the sheriff's department, but no record was ever found. And then there was one final incident.
I saw some men moving around on the porch, and they were firing back across the meadow. And they were firing a high-powered rifle. And I can hear those bullets ricocheting.
I was walking up here. I heard a ricochet, and I saw the tree branch fall, which is right here.
Smith took off running. He claims the shots came from the direction of his neighbor, Robert Berube, the same man he says tried to run him over.
I was mad because he's shooting off that deck, and he was drunk. You could see him staggering around on the deck up there.
Hutchinson called Sheriff Hartman, who came out with other deputies. But like so many times before, the matter was dropped. Hutchinson also told Sheriff Hartman about the hanging, but it was never investigated, never even written up. With that, Smith knew he had to leave Gilpin County.
It made me sad, but in sadness, I could do nothing but go. It wasn't worth dying or worth trying to protect, but not dying for. Finally, I came to that decision.
I think Roy Smith thought he could die up there and no one would lift a finger.
John Harlan and attorneys Steve Miller and Bill Finger remember the day Smith walked into the office.
He'd pull his cowboy hat down, and he would never remove it when we first met with him. That was to hide who he was.
He was beaten down. He was wondering if he had any rights at all.
They convinced Smith that he did. So he fought back in federal court, filing a lawsuit against Gilpin County, the Sheriff's Department, and his neighbor, Robert Berube, charging them with racial discrimination, harassment, and violating his right to equal protection. The county denied it all, claiming officers showed no racial bias, but instead provided exceptional response to Smith's complaints.
They actually got a district attorney investigator saying that he'd reviewed the case and that in his opinion, Roy Smith had received exemplary law enforcement.
Exemplary?
Exemplary in writing.
But Smith's lawyers found plenty of neglected evidence, such as medical records and the state trooper's report on the car assault. During pretrial questioning, officers began admitting they had lost evidence and made other serious mistakes.
These folks left tracks. They put out all-points bulletins for white people who complained of assault routinely. They took their leads and investigated them. Roy Smith, no all-points bulletins.
Sergeant Kent Edlin was in charge of the hit-and-run investigation, the one taken away from the state trooper and closed for lack of evidence.
It is preposterous to say that there was a lack of evidence in this case, based on what you know now and what you've seen. Isn't that true?
Define preposterous.
Incredible. Ridiculous.
Knowing what I know now, yes.
It was all there to be had.
Yes.
So what does it take to register a racial hate crime? Mother niggers are all over the place. To a black man doesn't register as a hate crime with you?
As I stated before, we just had a class on that. Now it would, then it didn't.
And what about the hanging? Under questioning, Sheriff Hardman admitted he was near Smith's home when he learned months later about the alleged crime.
You knew right away that was a very serious matter, didn't you? Could be, yes. You didn't go over to see Roy Smith to discuss this stunning information, did you?
No, I didn't go to Mr. Smith's house. As I recall, we had several calls pending.
Did you have any cases that were more significant than a black man being hung upside down in his residence?
Did I have a case on that type of thing? No.
Okay, you consciously decided not to go there, didn't you?
I believe it was a conscious decision, yes.
I was shocked and stunned. The sheriff admitted that he made a conscious decision not to investigate the hanging of Roy Smith.
And then there was the charge of official racism. People around town called Smith racial names. But what about the sheriff's department?
All signed their names to a statement that none of them had ever called Roy Smith Nigger Roy.
Not one.
Not one.
John Bain is the undersheriff of Gilpin County. You have never called Roy Smith Nigger Roy?
No, it's not something that we made up in our office. It's not a label, if you were, that we ever assigned him.
But that's not what former Sheriff Rosetta Anderley remembers.
You are under oath, but if we're in front of a jury, did you hear Bruce Hartman, do you believe, call Roy Smith Nigger Roy? As part of the everybody that did.
I'm sure he did.
John Bain? They never called him Roy Smith. They only called him Nigger Roy. She admitted that. Whether you had business or whether you were just talking, you called Roy Smith Nigger Roy. That's the name you used to describe him to other people. Isn't that true?
That would be true.
That was devastating. That meant that the sheriff's department had a policy of referring to him using racial slur.
And when they looked inside the sheriff's computer file, they made a startling discovery.
We just made him pull up the nickname file on the computer screen. There it pops out, Nigger Roy, Roy Smith, a.k.a. Nigger Roy. Roy Smith has never been a suspect in a case in his entire life.
He doesn't have a record?
He's recordless. And I don't think law enforcement has the authority to racially brand an innocent victim.
Do you believe that that reference to Nigger Roy in the files is racial branding of Roy Smith?
It sure could be, yes.
It could be?
Well, yes, it is.
In a stunning pretrial opinion, the judge ruled that Smith's rights had been violated and called the sheriff's department's actions appalling and reprehensible. After that, it didn't take long for the county to settle. Roy Smith received $700,000. The road leading up to his house and past his neighbor Berube was named after him. And the sheriff's department wrote a letter of apology. Do you understand now how offensive it is and how wrong it is to refer to another citizen as a nigger?
I won't deny that, but it is also a reality in this not perfect world that many people did not know who Roy Smith was, but they in fact knew Roy Smith by this other name.
Sheriff Hartman, when is it okay for a white man to call a black man a nigger?
I don't believe it's ever okay.
The county took no action against the sheriff's department. No one was fired or suspended. They all kept their badges.
It's the worst pain of all, worse than any of the other ones. That's one I can't get over. I don't understand it.
What is the worst scar?
Is knowing that they still in office. They protected the evil men. And for protecting them, they should have been thrown out of office.
In the end, Roy Smith was run out of town. He's not here anymore. Does that make you feel badly?
It bothers me, yes. But I also know the reality of the profession I'm in. You can't make everybody happy all of the time.
Smith's neighbor, Robert Berube, also settled.
Am I going to say I miss him now? No. No. But I wouldn't miss a white man either if he did the same things to me. I wouldn't miss a Chinaman. I wouldn't miss an Indian if they were doing the same things to my wife and I and our animals.
I have no hatred against none of the enemies that I had that I thought was my enemies. I don't hate either one of them. Hate ain't any good. It tears you apart. And only the hater loses.
Today, Gilpin County attracts gamblers and tourists, people who probably know nothing about what happened down this road. Roy Smith stayed in Colorado, but in another mountain town, where he says he feels safe.
Why should we care about what happened to Roy Smith? I'll throw a question back at you. Would you like it happening to you?
I don't think Roy Smith is an isolated example. It's made me realize how hard it still is to be black in America. He just wanted to bear witness that this couldn't be done to him.
What were you after?
I was after justice.
I'm one of the blacks that got away. Oh, I got away.
Ronnie, this man was horribly wronged, and yet he settled. Why didn't he go to court?
Roy Smith is not a vindictive man. Had he gone to court, individuals, meaning members of the Sheriff's Department, could have been held personally liable. And Roy Smith said he didn't want to take away their homes the way he eventually lost his home. He said, I do not want to stoop to the level that they stooped to.
He was dogged in his pursuit of justice, but he didn't seem to want revenge.
No.
But even if he didn't want that, isn't it reasonable to think that somebody should have gone after the federal criminal aspects of this thing? You know, civil rights violations.
Well, Roy Smith's lawyers did write to the U.S. Attorney in Denver and asked the U.S. Justice Department to pursue the case and even provided evidence, but nothing really ever came of that.
How's he doing now?
He's fine. He's living in Colorado in a city we can't disclose for his safety. And the local police chief told him, he knows about his history, said, if anything ever happens to you, let me know. I'll take care of it.
Amazing that this could happen in this day and age, though, when you think of it.
That's right.
Thank you, Connie. Well, next, it could hit the shelves any day. A breakthrough treatment for sexual impotence that could change the lives of millions of men and the women they love. Dr. Timothy Johnson with the breaking medical news after this.
I just learned some scary things from my vet. He said heartworms could kill Trevor. Just 2 fleas can cause an infestation. Intestinal worms can cause painful stomach aches. Then he gave me something to protect Trevor. Sentinel.
Just 1 Sentinel tablet a month protects against heartworms, fleas, and 3 intestinal worms. Dogs should be tested for heartworm before using Sentinel, the only product that protects against all these parasites.
Ask your veterinarian.
Sentinel means protection.
Where there isn't any trouble. Do you suppose there is such a place, Toto? Somewhere.
Wash the world away. Start again. Clean. You're protected by Dial. The most trusted antibacterial soap of all. Doesn't that feel better?
Another breakthrough from the 1-hour labs of Lens Crafters. New Featherweights Plus lenses. They're lighter, they're thinner, they're more impact resistant, and now they're twice as scratch resistant compared to regular plastic lenses. New Featherweights Plus, only from Lens Crafters, made in about an hour.
There's a shape that's so soft, like an ocean wave, come tumbling down so gently.
I like the color of, I like the color of, there's no other of.
ABC News 2020 will continue in a moment.
Saturday, who really killed Dr. Martin Luther King?
I believe this man is innocent.
Shocking accusations from the family themselves.
This is a cause we have to fight for.
Forrest Sawyer, ABC News, Saturday night, 10, 9 Central.
Sunday, Susan Lucci is very good at being very bad.
One way or another, I'm gonna find ya.
You always liked it rough, didn't you?
She'll make any attraction fatal. Emmy-nominated Susan Lucci in the world premiere, Blood on Her Hands, ABC Sunday.
All the drama of Melrose Place.
I've been hitting on the coach.
Looks like. With half the fat. Push. 2 weeks from Monday on ABC.
The KMBC 9 News difference is people.
Weather's real important in Kansas City, and I think we dominate weather coverage because of Brian. He really knows his stuff and has all the technology to get it right and get it first. No one covers weather better than Brian Busby. And when weather's the top story, he has the resources of our entire news team. Brian Busby and our people make the real difference in weather coverage.
For the millions of men who want to make love and can't, we're about to make your night. An exciting medical breakthrough promises to revolutionize the treatment of sexual impotence. And it could be available in a matter of weeks because the FDA is expected to approve it very soon. 2020 has been working behind the scenes, tracking this amazing advance and the first men to try it. Here's Dr. Timothy Johnson with a new prescription for love.
But as I said, I did my... Thanks to a simple little pill, Roger Katz has a new lease on life. 2 years ago, the New York City bachelor feared that his sex life was finished. Prostate surgery had left him impotent, which meant he was unable to have satisfactory erections.
It's very psychologically debilitating for somebody to realize that that part of their life is over. Even in a non-sexual way, it debilitates your functioning in life. I mean, you feel as if there's a chunk of your life that you had that's now not there.
Roger tried penile injection therapy, currently the most common treatment for impotence, or erectile dysfunction, as doctors now label it.
Once the actual needle has penetrated the skin, it's not that bad, but the idea of stabbing yourself in the groin is not something that most men, and not something I relished either.
However, last year, a true medical miracle for Roger came along in the form of this small blue pill, brand name Viagra. The search for a pill to cure impotence has been one of the holy grails of modern medicine. The company that could develop such a pill would not only help millions of men, but also reap huge profits. Now, Pfizer Pharmaceuticals appears to have won the race, and 2020 has learned how Pfizer developed and tested this new wonder drug, and just how close they came to missing its potential. Roger Katz was one of the subjects in the Viagra trials.
It works totally naturally, that you achieve an erection, you make love, and the erection goes away, and it's comfortable. And it's not something that I'm embarrassed to do. It's just a matter of taking a pill.
Roger's doctor, Andrew McCullough, an impotence specialist at New York University Medical Center, was one of the clinical directors of the Viagra studies in the U.S.
Viagra is going to revolutionize the treatment of erectile dysfunction.
No doubt in your mind about that.
There's no doubt in my mind.
18 million American men suffer with impotence, but only 5% of them have sought any kind of treatment. One big reason is the reluctance to consider the current treatments, like injection or the vacuum tube or even penile implants, treatments that are embarrassing to most men. But impotence experts say that the pill, just taking a pill, will suddenly and dramatically change everything.
For as long as I have been associated with urology, there have always been patients that came to me, is there a pill for erectile dysfunction? And now there is.
As 2020 has learned in interviews with Pfizer, the discovery of this revolutionary pill was pure luck, a total accident. In the mid-1980s in England, Pfizer was testing a new compound to treat heart disease. The Pfizer scientist who heads the Viagra team, Dr. Ian Osterloh, told us how close they came to missing the boat.
Its effects on the circulation of the body was somewhat weak, weaker than we'd hoped for. And after about the 7th study, when high doses were given several times a day, some of the volunteers reported erections as an interesting effect.
Pfizer had no explanation at that time why Viagra caused erections. It was a fluke, they thought. They did know that Viagra blocked a certain enzyme, but what they didn't learn until several years later was that the enzyme is found almost exclusively in the penis.
You want a drug that's only going to work in the penis or in a few parts of the body as possible. And this drug works by blocking the enzyme in the penis and allowing the erection to occur.
An erection is a complex interplay between psychological and physical events. The first event is desire, and it begins in the brain. The desire message travels down the nervous system to the arteries in the penis. There, the two penile arteries increase in diameter to let more blood into the penis. The next step is to keep the blood in the penis. The muscles in the penis do that by actually relaxing, pulling the blood in the penis to keep it hard. This is the stage where Viagra helps. It amplifies the signals at the nerve endings in the penis to tell the muscles to relax. Viagra can't fix all erection problems, but experts estimate that about 70% of erectile dysfunction is due to problems with this muscle relaxation phase. Once Pfizer had figured out how Viagra works, the next big hurdle was to test it in real-life settings to see if it produced an erection.
We assessed the effect of a single dose to improve erections during sexual stimulation, and that study came out positive.
How positive?
10 out of 12 responded well in that study, and some of them asked if they could go on to another study with the same drug. And I think really at that point there was a tremendous amount of excitement within the company.
It is estimated that about 50% of men between the ages of 40 and 70 will suffer with impotence at some point. About 80% of impotence is due to physical causes, 20% is psychological. But the good news is that Viagra seems to work whether or not the cause is physical or psychological or some combination of both. How do psychological factors affect the physiology of an erection?
Anxiety affects levels of certain of the chemicals in the body that fight the relaxation of those muscles. If those muscles do not relax the way they should, you won't get an erection.
Besides anxiety, many other factors can interfere with an erection, including vascular problems like hypertension and diabetes, nerve damage caused by surgery, certain medications like high blood pressure drugs, smoking, and drinking. Before Viagra, costly and invasive procedures were often needed to pinpoint the exact cause of impotence. But for most men, Viagra will eliminate the need for these tests because it usually works no matter what the underlying cause. In fact, Viagra's response rate in men suffering impotence due to either a medical or a psychological problem is almost identical, 70 to 80%. Two groups of patients do have a lower response rate. Patients with diabetes are at 50 to 60%. And patients who have had a radical prostatectomy for cancer are at 40 to 50%. However, even in tough cases where there has been nerve damage, Viagra can work quite well.
Yes!
Alfred Pariser, who had prostate cancer surgery, was also in the Viagra study.
I have an erection like I was 25 again.
And the very first time you tried the pill, it was working like, as you just put it, you were a 25-year-old.
Yes, yes. It was, the skies opened, a bolt of lightning came down, and God said, I love you.
Alfred's wife, Cheryl, says she appreciates Viagra as much as he does.
This pill is as much for the women as it is for the men, because there are a tremendous amount of macho men in this country that would never admit that they may have a problem, and there are a lot of women that are walking away from a relationship saying, you know, what did I do wrong? Should I have tried this? Should I have done this? And when in reality, it wasn't exactly their fault.
A big plus for both Alfred and Cheryl is that Viagra does not require the interruption of lovemaking to give an injection or use a device. In contrast, Viagra feels very normal. It works only when you want to have sex and are aroused in the usual ways. And it doesn't work if you don't feel like it.
Married couples tend to have little unverbal signs, and I will say, oh boy, tonight, right? So I will take a pill. And then lo and behold, Cheryl will feel tired, or the phone will ring,
Yeah.
Or our daughter will come popping over.
Real life, in other
Right,
words.
real life, right?
Exactly.
And then you won't have an erection.
You won't have an erection unless, I happen to have a nice dream.
There is one group of men who should not take Viagra, namely patients taking nitrate medication, such as nitroglycerin for angina. Combined with Viagra, nitrates could cause a big drop in blood pressure. But other than that, no serious adverse reactions have been reported with Viagra. A very small percent of men have had minor side effects, such as headaches, facial flushing, and indigestion. The vast majority of men report no side effects. Is there any evidence that this drug will help people who have already normal erections? Men who might want to try it just to see if it could be even better, so to speak.
Well, we haven't specifically studied that in the program, and I don't want to speculate.
Is there any reason to think the drug might be dangerous in somebody who has normal erections and just decides to try the drug?
There's no reason to think that any particular group of people, apart from those taking nitrates, would run into any safety problems.
We now have a pill that works in a very natural way, that works just when you want it to, that is very effective and with no side effects. In your case, it sounds too good to be true.
Why? It is true. I know it's true. This pill allows you to function as a young kid, physically, with the intelligence and wisdom of maturity.
In New York, that
No.
you would be living here.
No.
Living in...
That is one amazing drug.
It is. It is.
Are the effects of this purely physical, physiological, and mechanical, or could it enhance desire also?
Well, it's not an aphrodisiac. It won't create desire where there is none. But to the degree that so-called lack of desire is caused, at least in part, by performance anxiety, and this drug can help that, I think indirectly it may help desire.
How soon will it be available?
What we're hearing is that the FDA might approve it as early as next week. The company says that once it's approved, they intend to have it in the drugstores within several weeks, so it could be very soon.
Well, that is world-class medical news.
I agree.
Thank you, Tim. We'll be right back.
Coming up on KMBC 9 News.
What's going to happen to these dogs found in squalid conditions near Garden City? I'm Martin Augustine. We'll have that story coming up tonight at 10.
Also tonight, she tried to get her pets back and became the victim of alleged armed robbery. The story coming up at
10. Introducing all new Salon Selectives with improved styling products customized to make your hair look so great, you may even wear that lovely dress again.
Very daring, very unconventional. Ecco domani Pinot Grigio, very Italian.
Now, an update. Last week, we took you to the American island of Saipan, where we found many factory workers living and laboring in deplorable conditions. As we reported, many of America's top companies are doing business there, including ABC's parent company, Disney. Our story prompted Disney officials to inspect their suppliers on the island, and they say that the conditions they found were unacceptable. Disney says it has now suspended its operations on Saipan until improvements are made. Well, now it's time to check in with Nightline, and Ted Koppel previews tonight's program.
Tonight on Nightline, before Leonardo DiCaprio, before the box office smash, there was The Dive and The Obsession. Tonight, we'll have Titanic, Ship of Dreams, a filmmaker's odyssey on Nightline, followed by Politically Incorrect.
That's Nightline after your local news. And Monday is Academy Awards night, which means 2020 won't be on, but Barbara will be, with her annual Oscar Night special. And this year, Barbara says she has 3 of the most outspoken stars she's ever interviewed. That Man in Black, Will Smith, and 2 Oscar nominees. First, the beautiful Kim Basinger, and then Burt Reynolds making her comeback. Showtime is 8 o'clock in the East, preceding the Academy Awards and following them in the West. Well, that is 2020 Friday for this week. We thank you for joining us. Remember, we're in touch, so you be in touch. I'm Hugh Downs. For Barbara and all of us here at 2020, have a good weekend, happy spring, which just started, and good night.
To order a video cassette or transcript of tonight's 2020 Friday, call 1-800-CALL-ABC.
2020 has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source. ABC News, now always on.